Welcome to the April 13th edition of Global Nashville with Karl Dean, presented by the Tennessee World Affairs Council. I'm Patrick Ryan. This evening, Mayor Dean will speak with two community leaders who represent the Nashville area Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. A very complete bio for each of our guests is on our website at tnwac.org. Dr. Rolando Toyos is chairman of the board of the chamber. He is an ophthalmologist specializing in cataract surgery, LASIK, glaucoma, and dry eye. He is one of the most experienced surgeons in the country, completing over 35,000 cataract surgeries, 20,000 glaucoma laser treatments, and 25,000 LASIK surgeries. Dr. Toyos' clinic has been recognized as one of the fastest growing companies in the United States by Inc. magazine. Yuri Cunza is a Hispanic media professional, business and community advocate. He serves as president and CEO of the Chamber of Commerce and is co-founder of the Spanish language newspaper La Noticia. In 2018, Yuri Cunza was selected to serve on the United States Hispanic Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors, serving as chair of Region 6, which represents Alabama, Florida, Georgia, Mississippi, North Carolina, Puerto Rico, South Carolina, and Tennessee. He has been named to the Nashville Post's In Charge list of business leaders who are writing Music City's success story. Again, please look at the biographies of these leaders in our community to learn more about their contributions, too numerous to mention here. The Nashville Area Hispanic Chamber of Commerce is the oldest, longest running Hispanic business association in Tennessee, promoting the economic growth and development of Hispanic entrepreneurs. With a membership of more than 300 businesses, the Chamber represents their interest in Nashville and surrounding areas, connecting entrepreneurs and micro enterprises, facilitating strategic alliances, networking, and sharing of business and financial best practices. And now, Mayor Karl Dean.
Well, thank you, Pat, and welcome to Yuri and Doctor. Welcome. I'm glad you're both with us. Let me just start with Yuri and ask this question. Let me just understand the relationship between you two and where you fit in the organizational chart. Yuri, you're the executive director. You're the day-to-day management of the Nashville Area Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's accurate. The Hispanic Chamber is now 21 years old.
Okay, and Dr. Toyos, then you're a member of the chamber and been active in the chamber, I assume, and you have risen to the position now where you're president of the chamber, essentially the leader of the membership of the organization.
Yeah, so Yuri got me involved a few years ago, and first as a member, and then I became part of the board of directors, and last year became the chairman of the board. And so Yuri and I have been working together through the pandemic to push the chamber forward.
Right. And so, Doctor, I'll start with you. Could you just sort of get us acquainted? What's your background? How long have you been in Nashville, and what's your goals and dreams?
So, born in New York to two immigrants. My dad is Cuban. My mom is Dominican. They escaped Castro's Cuba, came here to fulfill their dreams, and they instilled in us a work ethic. And I was raised by my parents to think America was the greatest country on earth because you could pursue your dreams and had the freedom to do that, which was that freedom they didn't have when they were in Cuba. And from New York, I moved to Northern California. I come from a long line of teachers. So eventually I became a high school science teacher and a high school basketball coach. Then after that, decided to go to medical school and did a residency in ophthalmology. And while I was doing my residency, I got a phone call from St. Jude's and they needed a ophthalmologist. I came to visit Tennessee and I fell in love 23 years ago. So we had practices throughout West Tennessee, and then about 11 years ago, we opened a practice in Nashville, and now we have 3 practices in the Nashville area. But my goal even from very early on, was to try to help as many people as possible, and help Hispanics and help new immigrants, because I know what my parents went through. And also they were very instrumental in helping me pursue a dream. So I'm always looking for dreamers and trying to lift them up and do whatever I can to help them. And the chamber seemed like a perfect thing to do in Nashville, and the work that Yuri has done in the past and is doing really attracted me.
Well, I mean, this is a little off point, but I'm intrigued by the fact that you were a teacher and a coach, and then decided to go to medical school. How old were you when you decided that?
Well, my parents put me in school early, so I was actually teaching at 20. So I was already a full-time teacher, and also getting a master's, and also doing research. So I never finished, well, not finished, I never stopped doing my undergraduate research in medicine. And then eventually I just had to make a decision. And I loved both careers. I loved being a coach. I loved being a teacher, but there was always something pulling me to doing research and being in medicine. And I love what I do now, but I still am in.
You were teaching science, right?
Yeah, I was teaching chemistry and biology in high school at 20.
So you were able to apply to medical school, and you already had the necessary science background to support that application?
Yeah, because I was always thinking I was going to do one or the other. And then I just decided to do both. But, this actually is the same skills that I used as a teacher I'm still using today, because I go around and I teach doctors how to do new procedures. I teach them about the research that we're doing. My wife's also an ophthalmologist, and she heads our research program. So her and I are always out teaching. We've been around the world teaching, and it actually allowed me to do the two things that I love the most, which is medicine and teaching.
And what year did you move to Nashville?
I want to say 2008 or 9, somewhere around there. Maybe 2010, somewhere around there.
Shortly about the time I was mayor, and you
Yeah.
And you came to Nashville. Had you been here before? How'd you pick Nashville?
It's really funny. When I first started working in Memphis and in Jackson, Tennessee, I would always come to Nashville to watch the Titans or the things that were going on in Nashville. So, and there was an opportunity for me way back. I think it was like 2004, 2005. I was offered a practice that I almost bought and took over. But at the time, I was team physician for the Memphis Grizzlies, and it was taking up so much of my time. I didn't think I could do all of it, even though if you ask my wife, I say yes to everything, and then I try to figure out how to get it done. But then after 10 years of doing the Grizzlies, I decided I wanted to do other things, and my kids were starting to grow up and spend some more time. And then my wife wanted to move to Nashville because of the great schools. And so our eldest daughter graduated from Brentwood, and it was a great experience for her. And then our middle child will be going through there, and our youngest child is going to a private school. But I think education is kind of what brought us here. And while we're here, I just decided to open a clinic, and then it just grew. And there's the opportunity in Nashville. There's a lot of opportunity, and I still think there's a lot of opportunity in Nashville.
You identified sort of the economic strength of the city, saw that as an attraction. But how did you look at Nashville as somebody who was coming from New York, your parents, Dominicans, Cubans, and then you were out in sort of the more, at least nationally known as more liberal area, Northern California.
Yeah.
How did you feel about moving to Tennessee
Yeah, so my parents are very conservative, and I know if you look at my bio, I went to Berkeley and Stanford, so you would assume kind of a Berkeley Stanford slant, but I'm a conservative. but I like to put myself more as a conservative with my ears open. And, I listen to everybody and I make my own decisions, and I don't do knee-jerk decisions. I try to figure out, but fiscally, I'm very conservative. But most of my friends at Berkeley and Stanford were very liberal, and we could sit down and have conversations. And if you look at my social media on Facebook, you'll find just as many Bernie Sanders supporters as you would Trump supporters. And I like being in that position. I like to be able that people can talk to me, tell me their ideas, and we can have logical discussions and figure out what's the best answer. So I'm open.
Well, how have you found Tennessee, whether in Memphis or Nashville, how have you found the state in terms of being a welcoming place to somebody from the outside, which
Yeah, I think people will size you up and kind of look at you if you're an outsider, and why are you here? And are you going to be a taker or a giver? And I think, coming here for St. Jude's, that kind of showed what I wanted to pursue. And I think people are very open and nice here. I've never had a problem in Tennessee, and you have individuals that you may have a problem with, but I've never, as a collective, I love it here. And, when I first decided to move here, a lot of my friends were saying, Tennessee, where did that come from? And for years, they would ask me that question. But I think over the last 6 or 7 years, my California friends, my New York friends, my Illinois friends, my Florida friends are wanting to move here. So
yeah,
they
well,
come
I
visit.
figured out you got it right a little bit early. Yeah. Well, great. Yuri, let me switch to Yuri for a second here. And before I start, I want to ask you some questions, Yuri, about the chamber and its mission and its membership. But tell us a little bit about yourself. Why Nashville? How did you get here? And what's your background? And you're muted if you don't know.
Yeah, I don't know if you can all hear me, but I'm having a little.
Oh, I think we lost them.
I think I'm back. I don't know if it's probably my internet. Sorry, I'm in South Nashville.
So what can you tell us about your background and how you got to Nashville?
Yep, Mayor Dean, can you please repeat that again?
Could you tell us how about your background and how you got to Nashville? Why, how did you come to live in Nashville?
Oh, sure. Yeah, well, I came first in 1992 the plan was that I will learn English. I was in medical school in Argentina. I was going into my third year. It was a 5-year program. And I have a relative here in Nashville, and my uncle and his wife were at Meharry and Vanderbilt, and they thought it would be a good idea to learn the language and be prepared for the time that I graduate. I can perhaps have an opportunity for a job in the United States that I'm sure they meant to facilitate. Things didn't work out that way. I ended up, taking my English class here, and
Well, let me, Rolando, let me ask you this then. Could you step in and sort of explain what the mission of the Middle Tennessee Hispanic Chamber is, and who comprises the membership?
Yeah, so it's a nonprofit that is here to serve businesses Hispanic businesses in the Nashville area, but we have businesses in Murfreesboro and the surrounding areas. And the way I see it is to be any assistance that we can be to help businesses thrive is where I think the role of the chamber is. Now, if we do other things that are more outreach towards just helping the community, that's great. But I think our main number one purpose is to help Hispanic businesses thrive. And I think last year was very important because with COVID, what we saw early on is these Hispanic businesses didn't know how to react and didn't have the connections that I saw other businesses have. So for example, early on with the PPP, we had Hispanic businesses that have never had any kind of strong relationships with banks, and they weren't able to tap into the PPP because they didn't develop strong relationships with banks. So that was one of the first things that we jumped into and started getting them lined up with PPP, with banks, so that they could actually take advantage of that and keep their businesses open. And what we did right away, we started a Saturday morning Zoom conference where we actually picked specific topics like how to apply for your PPP. We brought in different banks to talk about applying for the PPP. We brought in different government officials to talk about that. And then we've been continuing this on every Saturday since I think around February or March when we started that. And it's been incredibly helpful to a lot of businesses, and even myself that I've had
of last year, right?
Last year. Yeah. Of last year. And even myself as a business owner of 23 years, I find these Saturday conferences very helpful with the guest speakers that we have come in. But if you look at statistics, so the Hispanics and Latinos businesses are the fastest growing entrepreneur group in the nation. Stanford did a study showing that the U.S. Hispanic economy would be number 5 in terms of GDP of the world. But the underside of that is that Hispanic businesses, their average bring home is bottom line is $150,000, whereas other small businesses are bringing in $500,000, and their access to capital is much less than other businesses. So even though there's that entrepreneurial spirit, there's more education that needs to happen. And there is places where chambers like ourselves and the United States Hispanic Chamber can come in and provide valuable information. And just to give you a little side story about that whole thing is when I saw that they didn't have relationships with banks, we were trying everything to start these relationships, but it's hard to start a relationship in a panic, right? It's much better to have a relationship when times are good and then when times are bad. And I even thought about starting a bank. So I was putting together a group to start our own bank. And then one of our members, who is a banker, set me up with a group that was starting a bank in the Nashville area. So now I'm part of shareholders into a local Nashville bank called Lineage Financial. And one of our major goals is to do Hispanic business outreach.
Great. So do you see, is the chamber's role, how would you divide the role up in terms of, obviously you're reaching out to Hispanic business people in the Middle Tennessee area.
Yeah.
But you also have the role where you're reaching out to the sort of established banks, businesses, the governments of Middle Tennessee, which are not predominantly Hispanic, to cooperate, to seek help or whatever. How's that balanced out? What's your role? Is it mainly reaching out to Hispanic business, or is it reaching out to get help for for Hispanic business?
I think they're mutually inclusive. I think you initially have to get them and to see the value of a chamber. So my goal this year directing the board was, let's give value add. If we want to be a successful chamber, what is our value add for a business? And then once we do that, then we have to go out to these other banks, agencies, and the like, and say, what is the value add for you to foster our chamber and foster the businesses in our chamber? And then it's a win-win for everybody. I think when it comes to business, business is pretty straightforward. What are you going to do for me, and what am I going to do for you? And is it beneficial for both of us? And if you can do that, then everybody's successful.
Right.
But,
And Yuri, jump in here if you're able to technically. What is the membership of the chamber? How large is it, and what's the range and size of businesses that are represented by the chamber?
Great. Yeah, I'm so sorry about that. Look, we have had 61 Zoom meetings since the start of the pandemic, and I don't think I have any technical problems with that every Saturday morning. And today, I think it's just the power of this group of people that is just overloading my system. I want to think that way. But our membership is about 350 members that range from very small micro business to large corporations. It's only that the corporations, large employers, of course, it makes sense because we are a bridge to those two communities: the Hispanic business community, the small business community, minority-owned business, and the mainstream large business in the city. But like, for instance, I'm seeing here a comment on the chat area from one of our members, Julio Rivera from Delta. I think that is the Julio Rivera from Delta. I hope I'm not mistaking that for somebody else, but that will be that's a great example of one of the corporate members we have, which brings value because those are resources, interconnected memberships. And also we have that really family-owned business that is in the South Nashville area that is struggling to keep their dreams intact despite the impact of these really sad and devastated virus. And so for us, is each one, I mean, that's what our bylaws say. Each one member, despite the fact that there are different sizes and different investments on the to the chamber, they still, for us, they are equal. They have the same voice. I mean, it's one member, one voice.
Right. If a business in Nashville was, or anywhere in Middle Tennessee, was interested in strengthening or making connections with businesses in Central America or South America, would the Nashville Hispanic Chamber be a place to turn to for that business, or is that outside what you do?
Well, I think we are great connectors. Our job is to know what's happening around here and make it simplify it for those newcomers or those that have not been plugged in to what's happening. So we have to be constantly connected, engaged, and even though we may not be the ones that are bringing that to them, we will likely know where to direct them. And so it's important for us to be active, not only what is happening in our city, but also in our region. Yeah.
Right. And so you have been at this job for a while. How long have you been the executive director?
Yeah, I was on the board and I served one term as a chairman, and then the board it was a time in which I know I skipped all your previous question because of my technical difficulties, but so I served on the board one term, and then when it was done, the board directors wanted to keep that momentum going, and we basically became very busy, and it was a threat to the organization not to keep up with all of that. So they offered a job, but there was no funds really available to pay anybody. So I served in the role of the director for several years, actually, without getting any compensation. I mean, I'm not ashamed to say that. That's because it was important to us. Nashville was asking for voices, and what we need most right now is our community to be represented, which is not. It's not in yet. It's not in other areas of the.
Right.
Of,
That's exactly my point. I mean, you and I have known each other, I don't know how long, but I bet you it's over 20 years. And
looks
and,
like it, yeah.
and so you were there in this position when Nashville was facing different challenges. I mean, you went through the English only vote. You went through a period where, certainly on a national level, and you're still going through this on a national level, and on a state level, there was sort of a backlash against immigration. And so when you look back at your time with the chamber, how do you think Nashville has done? What do we need to do? And do you feel better than you did when you first gotten started with this?
Yeah, well, I was a rookie when I got into. I was asked to be part of the board by the board back then when I was doing a international film series at the Belcourt Theater. I went to film school, so I have a degree in fine arts and film directing. And my connections with that were, I think, growing and still are. And it's something that I rejoice when I have to do that. That doesn't have to deal with somehow a little of the politics and a lot of the tension because of, Nashville continues to grow, and is still trying to embrace and I guess just realize that the rest of we are no different than the rest of the country and the rest of the world. So by being part, by joining the organization, and then just it is almost, I think, having a family that I don't have a family of my own. It's something that I think for all of us, and I would like to hear from Dr. Toyos how after his time is up, his time is served, and he continues to be involved. I think it's a lot to enjoy. I don't think it's someone should covet that position because there's a lot of sometimes unfriendliness from a community that is not really in tune with what's happening to the rest of the world. And so, but I basically faced, and Mayor Dean, you probably remember all of that. We will face all kinds of criticism, but also, I guess, some recognition. To me, is that our community is here, is a community that could be an asset, and it is an asset. It is part of the economic picture here, and we should all learn more and recognize its value. I consider the Hispanic community to be the backbone of the economic prosperity for Nashville for all of these years that have passed.
Right. Well, Dr. Toyos, let me ask you this then, as the president and deeply involved in business in Middle Tennessee. Before you arrived here, there were a series of challenges the city faced: 2009, the English only vote, different actions taken by various political bodies that might not have been interpreted as being friendly to immigration. What are the greatest, if you could speak to the Nashville community, speak to the Nashville government, speak to the people of Middle Tennessee, what does Hispanic business need?
Well, I think what I was saying before in terms of inroads to the normal business economy, inroads into banks to foster small businesses, which will grow into bigger businesses. When you talk about that, we have more businesses, but they're not generating the same revenue as other businesses, even though they're just as successful. It just tells you they don't have investment money to grow their idea. And really, that is the access to capital is really one of the most major things to be able to have a successful business. So we have several successful businesses in the Hispanic, Latino run businesses in the Nashville area. And even though they are successful, they have not learned how to get access to capital. And as one banker has told me, sometimes it's easier to get millions of dollars than it is to get 10,000 in the banking world, because they have to fill out all the same paperwork, do all the same certifications and the rest. So I think a couple of things have to happen. One is to open this Hispanic community's eyes to what the potential can be. Then once they start moving forward and realizing their power, then others who aren't Hispanic will realize what they're bringing to the table. So the reason why I'm saying it like this is because if you look at other large Hispanic communities in other parts of the country, you will see that they have inroads to capital, into politics, into the different organizations that run a city or area or community. And that's what we're lacking here right now. So you were mentioning before, we don't really have a lot of Hispanics in political power. There's not many Hispanics in the banking world, which is, I had no idea in my mind that I would ever get into banking until I saw what a need was. And I said, if there's a need, I'm going to do whatever I can to help. So if you look at other communities like they have a large Hispanic community group, look at Miami, LA, parts of New York, they have all of these things working at the same time, and it's made their businesses grow. And that's what needs to happen in Nashville.
It's a challenge. I mean, what I'm hearing you say, and I totally understand this, that you feel that the Hispanic community is not fully integrated into the economic, political power structure of the community. And what are the roadblocks to that? I mean, how does that change?
And this is what I would like to bring to the chamber. So many times it's holding yourself back. So I heard from many banks saying, well, I've never had a relationship with them. They've never come to me and asked me for money before. And that might be a little bit cultural to step into a place that you know no one. There may be a language barrier there, and say, hey, I have this idea. Can I get a line of credit for $100,000?
Right. Yuri, you had something you wanted to add?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. So this is what we see. It's still, I think, I mean, I'm trying not to be too blunt here, but it seems like
Be blunt. Be blunt. This is a good.
Yeah,
group.
it's like for all these years, it looks like it appears that Hispanics are supposed to be asking for something,
Right.
and that's not what we do. Our organization, what we, I guess, attempt to do is showcase the examples of success and determination that members that belong to this particular group of individuals that are in business, as an example, also as a role model that our young members of the community also need, because there are no really those roles appearing in the mainstream business, private or government. So, but like saying, oh, they didn't ask for what? Are we going to ask for money to help the Hispanic community, to bring them like food, maybe have them learn English or something like that? I don't think that's how our community is. And I really dislike the fact that sometimes, we are the subject of an event that is portraying to fundraise to advance a community that actually is not coming to this country to ask for a handout. It's a community that is a vital.
You and Rolando have both talked about that is extremely important is that the immigrant population, Hispanic population, is the most entrepreneurial group in the United States. And I think that's been borne out here in Nashville too. What's your relationship with the Nashville Chamber of Commerce, the Ralph Schultz organization? You would not want me to describe it as that, but just to say the difference.
Yeah, well,
Ralph is the head of the chamber.
Patrick referred to Dr. Toyos as the chairman of the chamber. So I
Right.
wanted to clarify just so Ralph doesn't get upset about that. But I know. So we have a relationship of collaboration through years and through the different leadership that the chamber has had. We sit at the table to see in which way we can support their efforts, and we hope that, and we don't doubt that they will definitely support anything that we may need at this point. There's not often that's the case, but their members may not, or our members, the Hispanic-owned business may not have the affinity to join their organization due to different reasons, including maybe just because of the background of the multicultural or Hispanic background that our organization has that may make more sense to the members we have. But we also have members of the mainstream business community that are members here. So I will say that in efforts we have supported the National Chamber. We are part of their education efforts. And I do not doubt that if we need anything, they'll be there for us. But perhaps if they, I mean, I know they have wanted to recruit more from the Hispanic business community, and it has been a challenge. Of course, if we find that any of our members can take advantage of that, many times we have facilitated, participated in efforts that the National Chamber has done to include minority businesses, just as a sign of goodwill. Yeah, we have a particular niche market, I guess, that we work with and we deal with.
Right. Can for lack of a better word, mainstream or non-Hispanic businesses in Nashville, can members of the National Chamber of Commerce, can they join your chamber?
Oh yeah, we have a good 60 large, medium, large, also sometimes super big corporate members or members that they want to learn. I mean, for us at the NAHCC through the years, we have seen that one reason to join could be, okay, I'm new to Nashville and I want to get to know more people that speak my language that are in business, that are Latinos. Another reason could be a business cares to make inroads with a group of entrepreneurs or an association that will know or is supposed to know, and we do all efforts possible to constantly get to know who is around and who does what in the Hispanic business community, and also for hiring. So some of those reasons are, I guess it may look good for a corporation to be a member of the Hispanic Chamber because then they have a channel of communication with a community that is unfortunately sometimes separated from the rest because they are busy doing their things. And we have these corridors like Knowledgeable Road or others in which are predominantly immigrant. And you know, Mayor Dean, very much about the conversation we have had about that.
Right.
Circumstance.
Let me ask you this question. I think it's an important question. You've been here for different amounts of time. Yuri's been here longer than Rolando has. But looking back at your time in Middle Tennessee, are we, in terms of working for the Hispanic Chamber's point of view and the way things are going in Middle Tennessee, your involvement in the economy, the growth of business, the way new Americans are treated, are we moving in the right direction here? Tough question, I know, but are we generally moving in the right direction? And if not, what's the biggest problem?
It's a time of change, and the pandemic is not over, so there'll still be, I think ways to see things and adapt and adjust. I was just thinking about that question earlier about the relationship with the Nashville Chamber. For instance, I think we were very instrumental in supporting of the against the English only, and also when Nissan wanted to move to Nashville or to the area, we presented a good case that there was a community here that could embrace those that would relocate. The same thing with Amazon, the same thing with Alliance Bernstein, and others that we've been there. We've been soccer, like we've been there. We were at the table. It was good to be part of that, and I hope we are considered to be an ally in the process. So, but then I can say. If I am not there, I'm risking that no one will be there. And we have other friends, Mayor Dean, that from other associations or nonprofits that we that also sometimes are also at the table, but it's not many. So it is hard. It is a lot of pressure too, because I feel that if there is a invitation to be part of something, I cannot turn that down, because that may be the only opportunity for our community to be represented, to be seen as part of this growing city. So no, I mean, we will think that it's better. Maybe it's a little easier because we have a lot more friends and allies. More people know us. It took a while to get that respect. I hope we have. I know we have some media respect because they find us as a source for many of the stories that they cover that are very well-meaning. We're still traveling. We haven't arrived to our destination. Dr. Toyos.
So here's what you have to do is first of all, there's stereotypes, and the only way you break stereotypes is to be involved and show them that you are not a stereotype. So when people have stereotypes about Hispanics being X, Y, and Z, that don't have the cultural literacy or the ability to meet this group, you go out and say, look, here's who we are. Here's what we're doing for your community. If we weren't contributing to your community, or we weren't here in your community, your community would not survive. And I tell people that all the time. You should. But we have to go out and show them, and that's just the way life works. You have to go out, prove yourself, show your best, and then people start getting a different opinion about you, and it breaks stereotypes. But the only way to do that is to be involved. So that's why I say yes to everything. Somebody wants me to do something, I say yes, and then my scheduler at the clinic goes, are you crazy? You already said yes to like this, and this, and how are you going to do it? And how are you going to fit? So I'm driving around crazy, or, going from one meeting to another. But that's the only way that you actually break the cycle of people thinking one thing about your group. And, Yuri does a good job of representing us, but it's got to be more than Yuri. And this is what he was talking about before, mentors. There's really not a lot of mentors out there, or to do the hands up approach of bringing people more like yourself up. So
let me ask you this, sort of wrapping up my part of this is, you say yes a lot and you're very busy, but you've also written a book. And since we have a guest on who's written a book, we've got to at least mention that and get the title out there, and tell us what the book is about. What have you just published?
So it's Optimum Health in the Pandemic Age. And I've been working on a health book for a couple of years. And then my wife and I were supposed to go to China in November to complete a research study that we started out there. And I've been to China several times. And in October, the group that we're going to be working with said, hey, don't come. We think we have a new SARS epidemic. So I was getting information and talking to them throughout that whole episode. So I knew about the epidemic, which turned into a pandemic of COVID, a long a long time ago. So I started researching on epidemics and pandemics, and then I decided to turn my health book with a focus into pandemics and epidemics and bring them both in. So I finished that around January and published it in February. And what I'm very happy about, even the stuff that I talked about then actually has borne out, which is good. So my books are very scientific, research oriented. So I will go through and I'll read dozens and dozens of research.
Short question.
Yep.
Possibly ask you tonight is, what's the title? Tell the viewers the title.
Optimum Health in the Pandemic Age.
All right, good. And so take a look at that. And Pat, do we have some questions on?
Karl, we do. And I would just like to mention, I like Dr. Toyos' approach that if you want a seat at the table, you have to show up.
Yes.
That's good advice for anybody. We have a question from Joyce, who's on the board at the chamber. Not the chamber, your chamber. And Joyce asked for you to tell us about the pre-pandemic business difficulties that some Hispanic businesses experienced in South Nashville when their leases were ended. It sounds like the question is to rent to a higher bidder, but tell us what that's about.
Yeah, and as Nashville grows and we want to see all of that and change it into a I don't know, bigger city, and everybody likes those relocations and welcome the big corporations moving into their headquarters to Nashville. At the same time, the value of properties are increasing, and sometimes those that rent do not get a reasonable deal when they have to renew their leases. So some of the so that process of gentrification, I guess, that is impacting our small businesses. Now also the property tax increase is another thing that our small businesses are concerned. But what Joyce is referring, and I have to also definitely make sure I share with you that the work we do is guided and is supported by our board directors, that without them we could not really have that direction. And we have been lucky to have, and fortunate, I'll say fortunate, to have a good board of directors for many years now. It's a 2-year term for them, but they really dedicated, and then without them, I mean, we would not be as busy as we are, and we are happy that we are. So thank you, Pat, for changing my name there on the screen. And now I am officially Yuri Cunza with a C instead of a K.
I echo your appreciation for board members, and we're honored at the World Affairs Council to have Mayor Dean on our board. Let me ask one last question from the audience, and then I've got one. Walter asks, what advice do you have for Hispanic business owners as they prepare for themselves to come out of the COVID into better times? Any issues that business issues you see? A lot of people are talking about a boom, but there's a lot of stimulus money. So what's the forecast and things you tell your chamber they should be on the lookout for? Rolando, do you want to take that first?
I'll take that.
Follow up.
Yeah, so one of the things that I talked about early on when we started our Saturday conferences is be ready and prepared for everything. So when COVID hit and businesses were limited on what they could do, I said, instead of throwing your hands up, what are you going to do to continue to get business? So for example, in our business, we went to online. So we have products that we sell. And so we invested money into getting a whole online store so that we could actually generate revenue while our clinics were closed. And so I'm saying the same thing now that we're coming out, what investments are you going to make to get this, to take advantage of this rush coming back? So what are you going to do? So I never liked the idea of the question that Joyce was asking. So my feeling is, in business, if somebody's playing hardball with you, play hardball right back with them and be prepared. And there is going to be conflicts in business, and you want to be in a position of strength and not in dealing in a position of weakness. So if your leaseor comes to you, the person leasing to you comes to you and says, well, I want this property now, and I'm evicting you or something like that, you counter and say, well, I have a contract, you can evict me. So this comes back to the education of educating our businesses and what their rights are, what they can and can't do, and dealing in position of strength. So this is why mentors are important, and people who have been through the battles before can help the ones that are starting their battles now.
Yuri, any advice for business owners in the post-pandemic?
Those
We're
business owners
close to wrapping it up.
yeah, they have been learning a lot, because it was something that needed to be done. And we are very proud to serve and provide technical assistance here from in Nashville, as one of 8 locations in the country as part of what is called the USHCC Cares. And it is an effort led by the National Hispanic Chamber that has identified 7 other cities outside Washington, D.C., to serve as a bilingual technical support and assistance to take advantage of the resources and funding available through the CARES Act. So I'm very happy to report that several of our small Hispanic businesses have been able to go through the process and actually qualify and get that necessary funding that will keep their business open, we hope. There are some questions here on the chat room, and I would like to answer one here that says, from Dulce Torres. Hola Dulce, gracias por estar aquí. What needs to happen for more Latinos to join public office and roles needed in Nashville's economy? Well, I have thought about this a lot, because this is what I see all the time. It's that Dr. Toyos said was I could not turn down an invite to be at the table, because that may be an opportunity that cannot be repeated. And but people are busy, and this is not California or Florida or Texas or any of those, or Illinois, where the Latinos are much, the population will probably permit for a segment of those to be a lot more active and involved. I guess people need to work and make a living, and they also don't want to get in the middle of any controversy. And as Mayor Dean knows, and probably Pat also knows, being Latino sometimes can be controversial depending of the season and the political season. And what happens to, when Latino makes a mistake, then basically all the community made that mistake. And then we have to carry that for a few weeks or a few months or a few years. Yeah. And so it's not easy to say, oh, I'm going to be part of this. They just, maybe I don't need to put a spotlight in the fact that I'm a Hispanic. So Dr. Toyos, thank you very much for getting yourself into this. I assume voluntarily and very well aware of what you were doing, but this is not what the average Latino will want to do, be under that spotlight, because that sometimes may backfire. But few of us have done it, and I think it's well worth that. I do not regret it, and I don't think I can do it much to change anything that happened in the past, but I think it was for a good cause, and we hope eventually it ends up benefiting our community in the years to come.
Well, thanks.
It says that the best days are still ahead of us. Right?
To be sure. Thank you for
Okay,
that.
so
one last.
I want to answer that question. So, because somebody asked, what we can do to help Hispanics join the political process, and I say this all the time, being somebody that's run for office 2 times, is that if you want more Hispanics in office, Hispanics have got to come together and donate money. It takes money to win an election. Ask Mayor Dean. You don't win just with ideas and getting out and hard work. But the Hispanic community in this area and in Tennessee, if they want to see more Hispanic political candidates, they're going to have to get involved and with money and time, or else we will never have any Hispanic legislators. And this is something that, again, people go, oh yeah, I want more Hispanic aldermen and congress people and mayors and all this other stuff, but you're going to have to get involved because that's the only way they're going to win, no matter if they're the greatest candidate in the world.
To be sure, that's how the system works. Mayor Dean, a great conversation today. Any last comments on political office, climbing the ladder?
No, just thank you all for what you do for the city. I mean, I do think it's, I say this frequently on this program, that diversity and immigration has been great for our city. It's important that people succeed here. I mean, I think it speaks so well of the city that both of you, Yuri and Rolando, picked Nashville as a place to live. I mean, again, it's a compliment to the city. Your success is important for the city, and I wish you well with your organization. And we hope to have you back. We'll be coming out of COVID here. Hopefully, we're coming out of it right now. Who knows? But Rolando knows. But we're coming out of this now, and times will be better. So we'll have you on in the near future again. And again, Pat, thanks, and thank you to all our viewers.
Great. We've been with Dr. Rolando Toyos, the chairman of the board, and Yuri Cunza, the president and CEO of the Nashville area Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Mayor Dean, for this evening. Please tune in to our next edition of Global Nashville with Karl Dean. You can find the calendar on our website, tnwac.org. While you're there, please consider making a gift to our nonprofit. That's how we keep the lights on here, and also consider becoming a member, tnwac.org. Thank you again, gentlemen, for this great conversation, and everyone have a great evening. Goodbye.